This is Matthew Kraters, Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about how Tether helps to fund the US government. Now, this is a topic that I've covered a few times in the past, most recently here in this video, USD stablecoins exporting US toxic sludge. But I've recently come across some excellent work by Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb that has given me a new level of understanding that I was missing before, and I'm beginning to see what's actually going on here, which is very, very interesting. So I'd encourage you to watch this video with Mark Goodwin, especially from the 10-minute point. This was an interview he did with Preston Pysh a couple days ago. And then there's a fresh new essay that just came out yesterday about Trump embracing the Bitcoin dollar. And I want to make some videos about the Bitcoin dollar and Mark Goodwin's ideas on that. But I thought I'd start by just talking about and emphasizing how Tether helps to fund the enemy. Now, a stablecoin is just a cryptocurrency that's pegged or tied to a fiat currency, mostly the US dollar. The vast majority of the value in stablecoins globally is in the US dollar, and to a much, much lesser extent, euro. So we're talking about US dollar stablecoins. I made this video about 2 years ago, Goodbye Tether, the end of stablecoins. And in that video, I discussed how the US government was in the process of shutting down all stablecoins like USDC and the Binance stablecoin BUSD, and soon to come Tether. My thesis at that point was that the US government simply will not allow public or private corporations to issue US dollars or US dollar stablecoins. That is a very special power reserved for the money cartel, Federal Reserve, and US banks. If Circle or Tether were still allowed to do it, what's to stop China or Russia from issuing their own US dollar stablecoins and thus obtain various currency powers? The crypto industry still doesn't understand that all US dollar stablecoins are going to zero. They will be regulated out of existence. Expect a lawsuit or other attack on Tether and USDT, which is the US dollar Tether stablecoin, in the coming months. Now, I was correct about BUSD. That was shut down basically when Binance was neutered by the US government, and BUSD has basically gone to zero at this point. But what's happened to USDC, which is the second biggest stable coin? It's moved up since the 2023 lows. It's currently at about a 35 billion market cap. And then we see USDT. This is the Tether US dollar stablecoin, and after a little bit of a pullback in 2022, it's really taken off and is hitting new highs. Now, the two main networks that USDT trades on is Tron and Ethereum. About $61 billion worth of USDT has been issued and is moving around on the Tron network, and about $52 billion is moving around on the Ethereum network, and then lesser amounts on all these other shitcoin networks. So how did I get this wrong? What did I miss when I was saying goodbye to Tether? First, I think I failed to make this really important distinction that Chinese-controlled US dollar stablecoins like Binance, like BUSD, are bad from the perspective of the US government. This seems very clear at this point. US-controlled US dollar stablecoins, on the other hand, are good from the perspective of the US government for reasons that we will see shortly. Now, what else did I miss? I failed to anticipate how much Tether would bend the knee to the US government. I expected them to be a little more cypherpunk about these things. But since I made that video, Tether went out and froze unilaterally and voluntarily froze all OFAC sanctioned wallets in a quote-unquote proactive security measure, basically bending the knee to OFAC and the US Treasury. And shortly afterwards, they onboarded US Secret Service and the FBI to their platform, which is probably the least cypherpunk thing in the world that you could do. If you're enjoying this video so far, I'd ask you to just help to support the channel. Please subscribe. That really helps with the algorithm, as does liking this video, commenting, sharing, leaving a tip or super thanks, and also clicking the join button, becoming a monthly member for $2.99 or $4.99. You get some extra emojis and some extra videos. I also want to apologize for the aircraft going over my head. I don't know if you can hear the background noise, but I'm currently recording from an Airbnb and I seem to be on the flight path. So what else did I miss about Tether? Here's what else I missed. The US government seems to be happy to use Tether and USDT to help maintain and expand US dollar hegemony. While Tether becomes an increasingly large buyer of toxic U.S. debt, in other words, U.S. treasuries, U.S. government debt, at a time when foreign buyers of this toxic sludge, as I talked about in that previous video, have been drying up for geopolitical reasons, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, etc. At this point, at the most recent attestation, which was May of 2024, Tether released the data that they now own approximately $91 billion worth of U.S. treasuries as the collateral backing their stable coins. They have $5 billion worth of Bitcoin. They have some other cash equivalents. They have some gold, but the bulk of the value is in U.S. treasuries. And $91 billion worth of treasuries is actually quite a bit. This article from May of 2024, Tether holds more U.S. treasuries than Germany, ranks 19th globally as a holder of U.S. treasuries. We can see here also from May of 2024, this is the major foreign holders of U.S. treasuries, Japan at the top, China at the top as well, followed by United Kingdom. And then if we go all the way down here, we can see that Tether is currently somewhere between Mexico and Germany, two major U.S. allies in terms of its holdings of treasuries at about $91 billion worth of treasuries. Mexico's at $99 billion, Germany's at $88 billion. So this is quite extraordinary, actually, that a privately held company would hold more U.S. treasuries than our strongest ally in Europe. I think from a policy and regulatory perspective, this editorial by Paul Ryan in the Wall Street Journal was also very significant, and I did mention it in my previous video. The U.S. is headed towards a predictable yet avoidable debt crisis, as he points out. If nothing is done, the economy will stall, while government promises of health care and retirement security will be broken, cuts to national defense, etc., etc. What are we going to do about it? According to the Treasury Department and DeFi Llama, a cryptocurrency analytics site, dollar-backed stablecoins are becoming an important net purchaser of U.S. government debt. If fiat-backed dollar stablecoin issuers were a country, it would sit just outside the top 10 in countries, etc. If the sector continues to grow, stablecoins could become one of the largest purchasers of U.S. government debt and a reliable source of new demand. This is a very, very important policy piece that's been floated, and I think this is what is happening. And I think that Mark Goodwin and Whitney Webb agree with this. And there's some good evidence here, Trump mentioning stablecoins over the weekend at the Bitcoin conference, and I wanted to play that for you here.
As part of our effort to provide regulatory clarity, we will create a framework to enable the safe and responsible expansion of stable coins. Do you know what a stable coin is? Does anybody know? Please raise your hand. Allowing us to extend the dominance of the U.S. dollar to new frontiers all around the world. America will be richer, the world will be better, and there will be billions and billions of people brought into crypto economy and storing their savings in Bitcoin.
So the main point of this is to expand U.S. dollar hegemony, as Trump himself says. Paolo Ardoino, who is the CEO and founder of Tether, responded to Trump's remarks. I'm very glad to hear a U.S. presidential candidate recognizing the importance of stablecoins and maintaining U.S. dollar presence globally and the need of a clear framework. And then, of course, he throws in some Bitcoin stuff. On top of that, Bitcoin is finally recognized as a powerful store of wealth that embodies the rights to financial freedom and freedom of speech. But why do we really need the U.S. dollar, and why is Paolo so interested in the U.S. dollar? Senator Cynthia Lummis had similar comments about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. It would firmly secure the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency in the 21st century. Now, why are all of these supposed super pro-Bitcoin politicians so very interested in, quote, securing the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency into the 21st century? Now, I know they're U.S. politicians, but they wouldn't have to keep emphasizing this if they didn't want to, especially at a Bitcoin conference. And isn't the U.S. dollar, from a Bitcoiner perspective, one of the world's biggest problems right now? The U.S. dollar funds the world's biggest terrorist organization, which is the U.S. government, the federal government, which has probably caused more coups, bloodshed, and human suffering than any other organization on the planet or in history, including being behind the funding and training of people like Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein for many years, before finally turning on them and then spending even more money with the industrial military complex and even more lives killing them. So this is what the dollar funds. This is what U.S. treasuries fund. The U.S. dollar is a global cudgel that has been weaponized and politicized. So why would any Bitcoiner want to help perpetuate U.S. dollar hegemony? You can understand why fiat politicians would want to do this, but Bitcoin politicians, probably only because they're ignorant of how many treasuries Tether has been buying, or because they're directly or indirectly on Tether's payroll, or because they're just interested, really, like Trump probably, in expanding the US dollar's hegemony rather than Bitcoin hegemony. As for me, I want to defund the US government, not expand its funding through US dollar stablecoins. So in conclusion, I think Tether truthers have it completely backwards. The real problem with Tether is not that it is a Ponzi or a scam that's just waiting to implode and bring down the whole market with it. The real problem with Tether is that it's actually an amazing business that is incredibly successful and growing at a very rapid clip, as we saw by the growth of the market cap of USDT. Tether is making billions of dollars every year from treasury coupon payments. Tether may be the best business in the world on a quote-unquote net earnings divided by employee basis, probably even better than a business like Goldman Sachs. The big problem from my perspective is that Tether is helping to expand and preserve US dollar hegemony by putting US dollars in the hands of millions in the global south instead of Bitcoin. Is Tether a Trojan horse for Bitcoin adoption, as we sometimes hear? Yes, it is, I think, in the same way that sitting on the couch and drinking weight loss shakes is a path to losing weight. It's probably slightly better than eating at McDonald's every meal, but why not move straight to exercising and eating clean, natural foods instead? Well, because that would be bad for the profits of weight loss companies. Likewise, if people move straight to a Bitcoin standard and just bit the bullet instead of getting hooked on stablecoins, that would be very bad for Tether's bottom line as well. And this may explain why there are many, many Bitcoiners who are on Tether's payroll directly or indirectly who are advocating for this. Most importantly, if people move straight to a Bitcoin standard instead of getting hooked on stablecoins, it would remove a key source of US government spending, which would be very, very good for the global south, as well as having a stable store of value like the US dollar. It's much better to remove and defang the US government than it is for people to have a non-volatile store of value in the global south. Are we as Bitcoiners still going to be cheering on Tether when it's the number one buyer of US treasuries in the world in a few years from now? And how are Bitcoiners going to rationalize supporting it at that point when it's buying more treasuries than Japan and China combined? Here's the stark fact. Tether exists only by the grace of Uncle Sam, who refuses to go after the banks that hold treasuries for Tether. Tether helps to prop up the US government by buying its debt. Tether spreads US dollar hegemony wherever it goes. It's high time to cut the tether that's holding back humanity. And I don't care that Tether's been buying Bitcoin for its treasury and that it invests in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Those are two activities that any smart and successful company will do anyway. And just because the drug lord is paying for your schools and hospitals doesn't mean that you wouldn't still be better off not living under a drug lord. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video, and let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.